You've made it through the entire day,
Whew.
Dad, and it's been a long day. It's not things haven't gone great. Things have not gone exactly the way that you believed that they would. And
No.
just ahead of you is that time of the night when you get to relax, you get to crash, you get to sit back, you get to maybe pour a little bit of something, you get to maybe connect with your significant other, you get to maybe enjoy a little bit of you time. But between you and that time
Okay. There
is
seems to
the
be a hurdle.
is the bedtime.
Oh,
It's the
yeah.
it's the kids bedtime, and let's be honest, it can be some of our least favorite times of the day, but it doesn't have to be. We got you. We got some ideas for bedtime that are going to help you today on the Dad Pod. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Dad Pod episode 3. Excited to have you here. I am Daniel. He is Clint, and we're dads. We don't have a
Yes.
ton of qualifications, but we do have children. Some would say a ton of children
Some
between the two of us.
the average is high. If we were to take the American average and then
It
talk
exceeds
about
it. It exceeds it. Let's just leave it there. Let's just say it exceeds it. So
we have lots of
our
reps
kids
at doing this is what we're saying.
various age ranges, and this is a conversation today. We're talking about bedtime routines. We're talking about some things that have worked for us, some things we've seen that we like, some things that don't work. Some of it's going to be learning from our mistakes. Some of it's going to be learning from things that we stumbled
of it's
into
gonna be
that happened to work. But let's start here, Clint. There's dads of varying ages
Yep.
watching and listening to this right now. Some of you, your kids are a bit older, and bedtime it's kind of a whole different thing. But for a lot of younger dads, there's there's two types of bedtime routines.
Okay.
There's the baby bedtime, which that in itself is like its own animal. And then there's the, I would say, 2-year-old, 3-year-old to, I don't know, 12,
Yep.
13-year old, like once until you get to the point where they're kind of taking care of all the bedtime stuff themselves. That's the part we're going to focus on the most, Clint, today. But before we get into that, any thoughts about the baby phase? When you got the little ones and it comes to that bedtime, what has worked and what hasn't worked for you?
Yes, I will say this. I'm gonna add something that is involved with the little ones and feeding schedule. This is important, and dads, you can help out a ton with this. If your significant other is if you're doing bottle or formula or pumping, any of those things, do a dream feed. It's a feed that happens about
I don't know what
two
that I
thirty.
don't I don't know what that's like.
I'm gonna
Can I get one for myself?
Yeah,
This is
see,
like this.
if you just put
Sign
a
me up for
funnel,
that.
if you put a funnel in my mouth with queso, just
Just
pouring down in the middle of the night.
I had a dream about this last night, I believe. Is that what a dream feed is? Is it where you dream about people just putting queso in your mouth?
No, that is not
No.
it at all. You try not waking the little one up, and you try giving them a little bit of nourishment as they sleep. And so, you if they're swaddled, you keep them swaddled. You try to change them as delicately as possible. And you do a little dream feed
Mm-hmm.
that is not waking them up and getting them excited and doing that whole thing, but it keeps them kind of in that the different stages of sleep and the different cycles, but it keeps them right at that bare minimum that they can put back down and go right back to sleep. And you just give them just enough. You don't make them drink the whole bottle, just enough to top them off to get them to that 6:30, 7 o'clock time in which somebody else comes. It's bedtime orientated, because with the little ones, bedtime is so it just elongates so much. That would be one of the things. Research dream feed.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. My only advice for we've been through the baby phase with again a number of children, and my only advice to people that are in the baby phase is has to do with bedtime, really has to do with every aspect of having a really little one, and that is don't get too used to the way things are, right? Just be present
Yeah.
in this and figure out what works this week or today or right now. Figure out what works right now. And then understand that that's not going to work all the time. It's not going to work in every. That kid's life changes 38 times in the first year. And like, I mean, changes like drastically changes. And they're almost not even the same person
The
week to
jumps
week,
and the
month
leaps
to month.
and everything that happens is insane.
So don't, if you, it can be one of the more frustrating things to feel like you've figured something out. And I don't want to say, I don't want to be discouraging and say, if you're a new dad, like, don't get excited about that. You haven't figured anything out, because that's not accurate.
No, it's not.
You have figured something out for right now. And right now is the only time that it's possible to figure something out for. And so, congratulations to you. You have done that.
You fix the puzzle.
All I'm telling you is that in a minute, somebody's going to come by and kick the puzzle off the
Yeah.
table. And then all the pieces are going to be on the floor again.
And it's the person you're supposed to care for that's going to kick the puzzle over.
It's the one. It's that one. It's that person. That little person right there is like, don't shake the baby, Clint. That's what they tell you in the hospital.
They tell you.
Don't shake the baby. All right, let's move on
Okay.
from babies and let's talk about this like kid phase.
Okay, this is
Kid
good.
bedtime. A lot of people are in this phase that are listening to this podcast right now. So I think my number one thing when it comes to kid bedtime, and I'll be interested to know what your thoughts are on this and how it's worked for your family, but routine in all aspects of parenting is your friend. And
It is so lovely.
when it comes to the bedtime, routine is king. Now here's something I don't mean before we get into what I do mean. I do not mean that parent that says my kid has to be in their bed at 6:14 p.m. every night so that I can read exactly 9 minutes of stories to them. So then at 6:23 every single night, we can turn out the lights and sing 3 minutes of songs so that at 6:26, and if somebody wants to have dinner or if somebody wants to go somewhere, I'm sorry, but we're out. We can never do anything with you ever again. We're not your friends anymore. We have a bedtime routine. That's not what I mean.
By the way, because again, see point one, the carryover of the newborn, the baby phase continues over here. You have to live life, and you don't live in a vacuum. You live in the world, so fix the problem as is. But these are precepts to help with the schedule. No matter, you can apply this in different situations.
That's right. Don't be those parents as much as you can. We get that your schedule is going to have to change. You're going to have to make some tweaks and whatever. Don't be those people as much as you can. Actually, I think keeping your kids a little inconsistent about the actual time they go to bed, and like sometimes we do go out to dinner and sometimes I think in the long run that actually helps you, because it teaches your kids to be adaptable and to fall asleep in less than ideal situations and to not be completely dependent on the very hard and rigid routine. Now, that being said, bedtime routine is all about understanding what's next and eliminating the whining about not wanting to do what's next, because it's very well understood from the beginning of the process exactly what's going to come in what order. And in the positive, it's about creating space to build memories and have great experiences with your kids. And so bedtime routine is in some order. You put on your pajamas, you brush your teeth, you go to the bathroom, you read this story, you play this game together every night, you sing this song every night, you watch this video every night, you do this random crossword puzzle every night, or whatever it is, the thing that you do with your kids in the evening. Routine is a way to get them excited about the thing that they need to do
That's
that
right.
they often don't want to do. And that's just going to help you do it a lot more efficiently and be a lot less frustrated along the way.
That's exactly right. My advice to you, Dad, is first of all, assist with the bedtime in a personal matter.
Oh,
Assisting
we
with
should have
bedtime,
led with this.
we should
We
have
should
led
have
with
led.
this. It's okay. Let's
Don't be the dad on the couch.
don't be the dad on the couch that just simply says, "Hey, go to bed.
Honey,
Get get
kids need to
up,
be in bed.
go make sure they're taking care of it, go into their room, these sorts of things." And when you do, I have a couple older ones now, and I haven't done this quite so much with them. I do this with the younger ones much more because it's easier. The older ones, once volition and will starts getting up there rampantly, things, but nonetheless, I need to do this with them, and I did this with them when they were little, and I chose bedtime as a way to connect with them and keep that routine and try to infuse in them relational equity, just in a
Mm-hmm.
rhythmic approach. And so
Mm-hmm.
this was very key for me. I had a set of questions I would ask them. The final
Mm.
thing I would say to them before they were to go to sleep, before I left the room and I closed the door, and we give a couple buffer times. You can keep on reading or you can keep on listening to audio or music as you fall asleep. We're not, again, that rigid, hey, it's 8 o'clock. And if you're not asleep, if your eyes aren't closed, then Boogeyman's going to come eat you or whatever. Not that. But my final interaction, I asked them three questions, and you could steal these three questions if you'd like. I have no problem with them, or come up with three questions of your own. Because guess what? I probably stole this from others who stole it from others who stole it from others.
That's what being a dad is all about. Just
Well,
finding something good and stealing it and pretending you came up with it yourself.
that's yes, definition of our lives.
Correct.
Quite literally. I asked them a question. The first question I asked them is, "How much does Dad love you?" That's my question I would ask them, and then their response is, "So much." Now that seems stupid. It seems simple because it is supposed to be stupid and simple. It's supposed to be just a relational kind of honing, kind of like a call back
Mm-hmm.
to understanding. I say, "How much does Dad love you?" They would say, "So much." Then I would say, "What's Dad's job?" They would respond, "To love us." I want my kids to know my job is to love them. My job is not to do anything but that, and it's not to make these incredible titans of industry, and it's not to, like, my job is to love them. Okay, and then the third question is, "What's your job?" And their job is to listen. Their job is to receive. So we've changed it to listen or to receive. As children, their job is not to love me back. Dads, don't get in this trap. There's a little bit of philosophy as well as helping with bedtime. It does
Mm.
help calm them down. Their job is to not love you back. You have that obligation to them, regardless of how they love you.
Mm.
After that, I say goodnight and I go on the way. And it just, again, it centers them. It brings some resolution to the end of the schedule, to that routine that Daniel's talking about. Then with those questions, they know in their mind, okay, Dad's going to leave. I'm going to be here and I'm going to go to sleep. That is one help that has drastically helped bedtime routine for us.
It's a big. I mean, those are huge. Those are great. Dads, like you're creating things like that is a great way for you as a dad, which some of us not as comfortable in all of the aspects of parenting, the one-on-one interactions and the more
Yeah.
personal interactions. Some of it is a bit of a stretch for us. It's a bit of a new territory for us. Maybe it's not something that you're really comfortable with at all, but then you add the dynamic of like this is a little person in the
A
mix
tiny
and
little
it's like
human.
yeah, and it can be a bit uncomfortable. Creating routine around those types of interactions is a great way to a little bit take the pressure off yourself because
That's
the
exactly right.
relational dynamic is sort of established for you. You're not, but this is a way of saying it. You're kind of playing a role at that point. Like each of you has a way that you
Yeah.
participate, and there's an expected back and forth that happens. And once that is set up, you're able to build meaningful, connected times with your kids without maybe in a way that's a bit more comfortable for you. So I think those are huge, and that kind of takes into my one of my kind of last major point, which is if you're when it comes to bedtime, my biggest tendency is to rush, is to be in a big hurry. As I said at the beginning of the show, listen, that time after bed, that's your time. And if you're a dad, that's it. That's all the time. Now, maybe you're a dad that works the night shift and you have a weird schedule, and I get like then that's not your time. Like you're immediately leaving the house or whatever. But for most dads, you've been working all day.
Hmm.
You come home from work and it's kids and it's dinner and it's family and it's everything. And once that door shuts and those lights are out, now like you can watch the game, you can enjoy a snack, you can sit down on the couch and not be bombarded with a million different questions and responsibilities and whatever. You can connect with your spouse and all of that. That's your time. And so I would always be in such a huge hurry to get bedtime over with. But I think going back to your point, bedtime is much more about the long-term opportunity to connect with your kids
That's right.
than it is getting your kids asleep for that day. Your kids, barring some kid, I know some of you are going to be like, not my kids. Your kids are going to fall asleep. Like at some point, eventually,
The human body necessitates that action.
they're going to, and again, some of you are like, Clint, let me stop you right there. Not my kids' human
I
bodies. They
have
don't,
I have the one exception.
they don't do it. They won't do it. I understand. It's rough out there. Bedtime is rough. But these are the quiet moments when you get intentional time with your kids. These are the moments when their attention span, in many ways, is at its greatest. They will actually listen to the things that you say at bedtime. And so read them that book. Read them the book. It's not a big deal. It's 5 minutes. Just read them the book. That's the book that they want to read. Have a conversation with them about about what they did today, how it was, about what they're excited about tomorrow. Have a conversation with them. Engage in some of those questions, some of that intentional time and space. It goes a long way for you, but I also think you're building over time not even memories for your kids. Your kids are not going to remember these bedtimes. You're
No, they're not.
building impressions of their childhood for them. And those are way more important than memories. Like
100%.
when they reflect back on how their childhood was, they're going to have feelings and a sense that they were cared for or not cared for, supported or not supported, encouraged or not encouraged, loved or not loved. You're building into that, and those things mean a heck of a lot more than like, oh, I remember this one time my dad took me fishing to this one place and we
That's
did
exactly
this
right.
one thing.
It's going to be that routine over and over. This is why it's called a bedtime routine. This is why they're impressions, because over the long haul, over years, you're going to build that trust, build that equity, build that relationship. And it is in these small, still moments that observationally your kids can learn something. Observation this: dad doesn't think of me as a nuisance to just get me down so he can go take care of himself. That's an impression. You can't define that, and you didn't say that, but you did with rushing through it, and
And
they can pick it up.
your 2-year-old, your 3-year-old might not pick up on that.
Sure.
But as they get older, they will.
Enough,
They do.
enough times doing it.
Enough times, and your 4-year-old starts to realize that, like, oh, he's just trying to get out of here as fast as he
That's
possibly
exactly right. Don't do that, dads.
can. Last thing, incredibly practically, pay for a subscription to Audible. This is not an advertisement. It's not a paid ad.
We're not getting paid by them.
But audiobooks at bedtime, and then find some bedtime approved audiobooks.
Yes.
Like my kids fell asleep, grew up falling asleep to like Beatrix Potter and Peter Rabbit, like
Great one.
Winnie the Pooh, The House of Pooh Corner. There's like Thornton Burgess bedtime stories. There's a ton of great, like slow and calm audiobooks that your kids can listen to that will give them something to engage their minds as they fall asleep, but allow them to kind of drift off. Those types of things versus just trying to lock your kid in a dark, quiet room and like yell at them every time they come out. Like it's not worth it. Give them some reason to stay in there. And audiobooks are a fantastic thing to do that with. All All right, dads, in the comments, let us know your bedtime routines. Let us know what has worked for you, what hasn't worked for you. We are excited to have you along. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We would really greatly appreciate that. Tell somebody, tell a dad you know about it as we try to grow the podcast and get it off the ground. So we will be back next week with more dad conversations. He's Clint, I'm Daniel, and we will see you guys then.
See you then.